The Red Bank Historic Preservation Commission will hold a regular meeting on Wednesday, April 16th, 2025 at 7 p.m. at 90 Mountain Street, Red Bank. Adequate notice of this meeting has been posted at Borough Hall, filed with Borough Clerk, and provided to the Asbury Park Press and the Two River Times. The commission has maintained a policy cutoff hour of 8:30 for its hearings. Can we start with the Pledge of Allegiance? Allegiance to the flag.
States of America.
And now roll call.
Marjorie Cavalier,
Present.
Pam Collins, Paul Gagnon,
Present.
Karen Schmelzbach. Present. I said it right? You did. Doug Miller, absent. Anthony Sotero,
Present.
Betsy Valero.
I take it everyone has had a chance to review the minutes of the regular meeting that was held and the special meeting that was held on that were held on March 19th. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, second.
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, it's passed. Go through a report of the Minor Works Committee.
The Minor Works Committee did not meet. There were no applications submitted for minor works.
River Center.
The only thing we got, Marion, that it's going to be our
Could
representative.
you
Oh, sorry.
turn your speaker?
Mary Bennett, who is the head of River Center, will be our representative on the Historic Preservation Site Committee
Design slash design guidelines.
/ Design Guidelines Committee. That's it.
Okay. Historic Site and Design Guidelines Committee.
We did meet and we wanted to confirm there are a list of properties that were added, I guess, to the 2009 master plan that never were adopted by ordinance. So we wanted to present those to have them drafted, and there's a timeline that goes along, with that. And Sean, I don't know if you want to lay out that timeline for how we adopt those additional properties as historic sites by ordinance, like we discussed.
Oh, yes. So we will be following the procedures as laid out in the ordinance for designating any historic site or new district, which is pretty much making a presentation before this commission, and then possibly making another presentation before the planning board, or we can send them a report. But before that, we have to notice the property owners of the historic preservation meeting. So we have to notice that, and then once we have the presentation, you guys will vote. Then we'll move forward to the planning board. The planning board would vote to recommend the designation of these sites and to include it in the historic preservation ordinance. Then it will move forward to the governing body who adopts resolutions, so not resolutions, but ordinances to amend the existing historic preservation ordinance. So there'll be first and second reading. So we would just carry that same report to council, and Christina can elaborate more at the council meeting on why.
And just so I know, of that list, these are distinct from the county, state, or federal register.
Those are the ones that are included.
They are included.
They are the ones that are listed on the county, state, and national registry. but are not listed within our local registry.
Okay, so they were mentioned in the
Master plan
2009 element, but never,
Correct.
and listed in the master plan.
okay.
Yeah, that's what,
Yeah, right,
Pretty
that element.
Just not in this historic properties database list. They're not all there.
Okay,
Okay.
makes sense.
Do you have I couldn't find that list. I don't know, Marjorie, if you have those list of properties, if we want to share that, those
I can resend
addresses now or send those. circulars to people.
it.
That's what you-
Did you?
Which list? The existing registry spreadsheet?
One in the
or
master
is it
plan.
One in the historic preservation element.
The one that includes these additional properties.
I'll resend it. I could send it.
Okay.
The Excel.
No, that's not.
No,
the Excel.
no. Mm-mm.
No, it's not.
I'll send it over.
Thank you.
And we had some other discussions, but so the other piece of that meeting was talking about, we had to adjust the proposal, but that will be under old
Yeah,
business.
that's under old.
Yeah, so we'll do that under old business.
Yep.
Okay. Moving to matters that listed under old business. Annual report feedback.
Oh, Christina, were you able to mention about the?
I did, we didn't get any specific feedback. I mentioned just kind of bullet points at our last meeting. Also, because I thought it was cool, the idea about the ghost signs. But yeah, no feedback. I'm sure the council will be waiting for what you come up with or anything fleshed out.
But we're on the right course. Would you agree?
From what I read, yeah. It was interesting to see. I also highlighted for them that it was pretty much the same number of applications that you saw as minor versus kind of regular works, noting that those minor ones are streamlined through this, which is good for folks to remember. We are trying to make this as easy as possible for the homeowners, right? But yeah, I thought that was a great report.
Thank you.
Okay. Design guideline and architectural survey proposal update.
That should be Shawna.
Yes, so, in the process of signing our, grant agreement, it was kicked back from the Historic Trust that, Stephen's proposal needed to include, a survey that is more intensive, since that's what we stated in the, grant. When in our grant submission, that we would conduct an architectural intensive survey or an intensive architectural survey. So I went back to Stephen to ask if he could include that language, and based on the budget that was set and the grant amount that was included, for the type of intensive work that is required by the Historic Trust for the grant, he has to whittle down the survey to only about 60 to 70 properties. And so that is what is included in your packet now, is the revised proposal, which I kind of asked him to kind of give me two options, was whether or not we should update the historic preservation element or do this intensive architectural survey. And based on his professional opinion, he said that it was best to move forward with the architectural survey, and then we'll do the historic update on the historic preservation element next year where I can budget for that. So that is what is in the budget. So now instead of doing just like a windshield survey of all the historic sites throughout the borough, now it's a more intensive architectural survey, and he will be working with the historic designation committee to narrow down those 60 sites that's gonna get the intensive survey done.
I just have one comment on it, and the one conference that I went to, not this year, last year in Jersey City, one of the things that was mentioned several times was that you should always have a narrative, the history of a place. as opposed to just cherry picking certain structures. Even if they don't exist anymore, you know, they should still be mentioned, but that the history, the story of a town is important. So to my mind, if I could do one thing to kind of sway our interpretation of these 60 to 70 elements, to me, it should include sites that are the story of the Eisners in town, which are not on any of these lists. You know, and by that I mean the collective presence of Eisner in town. And it could be a feature, because if you recall, the kind of product that Stephen will give us does kind of tell a story of what he did in Cape May and Hoboken, et cetera. It seems to me that this would be an opportunity, since these guidelines will probably last for 10 years, or we don't know how long. Seems like a missed opportunity to have him present that story, and it would be, the way I would envision it would be his headquarters on Broad Street, even though it's something now, the building still exists. Obviously the library, which is, so the one on Broad Street exists as a historic site. The library, as I mentioned a couple of times, is not listed. And then the Eisner complex on Bridge Avenue, that includes, correct me here, Anthony, 2 buildings, you know, the Galleria and the one across.
Yeah, there was across the street, there were other factory buildings over there, basically took up both sides of Bridge Avenue. And then we talked about there were some houses on Wallace Street that I think when you talk about the story is that they started out in a duplex, 2-family house where they lived on one side and made the factory the other side. And then they built their first factory, basically was just a house that they converted the whole house into a factory. So they really were this kind of rags to riches story. And the, was it Temple of Wonder?
Yeah, Yeah.
You know, the original building on Broad Street. So it's, and the Weisses too, you know, their contribution is kind of hand in hand.
right, the
in
wife,
there.
yeah, his wife.
Yeah.
So, I don't know how we can, I think we have the ability to kind of, if we're all in agreement that the Eisner story is important, and we should maybe take this opportunity.
Or at least,
to-
you know, the influence on the town as well. That's kind of, you know, some of the stuff that we discuss in our lectures at the library is, you know, this thread, you know, of the
Pardon the pun.
town. Yeah,
Pun.
exactly.
Right,
You know,
yeah.
what was the driving force, the economy, and then how that affected who lived in the area or built certain structures at certain time periods, where the factory would ramp up from a war or during a war time and then after a war. So after World War One, you kind of saw a little bit of a boom, you
Right.
know, on the west side built up, and that
Right,
actually during World War One.
so, yeah, if the minutes could reflect that aspect of it, I think that would satisfy me, so we don't forget when we finally do get to work with Stephen, that, you know, we have these, if we're working on this limited list, you know, that we could get his feedback on that, you know, and I think that by and large, that story wouldn't be as hard to research, because, I mean,
He basically came of presence in the town just as the town was becoming a town. You know, and the factory starts in 1902, right before it becomes a borough. You know, and it's right in that time period when they do an expansion, 1907. So it's basically the birth of the town is
Right,
built around the
exactly. I
birth
mean,
of the
yes,
Eisner, you know, the Eisner
exactly.
factory.
yeah,
And the Eisner history went all the way into the 1970s. You know, we had Monroe Eisner's estate up on Tower Hill.
Yeah.
And a lot of his estate, you know, encompassed Connor Drive, up to McLaren Street. His brother owned, Bertha Weiss owned Oldfield Place. A lot of these places were designated as affordable housing, so they built, you know, 2-family houses and apartment buildings so that there would be affordable housing in Red Bank.
Yeah.
Afterwards, so.
So again, since the three of us are here and Maren will be joining us, that's so that we can take that back when we start working with him. As a starting point and then look at the element and still do a walkabout with him to see, maybe which of the properties to focus on.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'd be great to focus on the Eisners. Now that we understand that it'll be narrowed down to 60 or 70 buildings. If you look at the designated historic district right now, there isn't a lot of significant architecture there. Unfortunately, a lot of those houses have been converted into two-family homes or apartments and so I think it'd be a good idea to for him to focus on some of the buildings that are outside of the historic district that have a historical architectural significance. Broad Street, for example, several other, Irving Place, River Road. There are a lot of big old Victorian river style houses that exist outside of the historic district. So if he's only gonna look at 60 or 70 houses on Wallace Street and Washington Street, not gonna get a lot of diversity or history for that time period. So I think even though most of the buildings in that area were built, prior to 1900, there were a lot of other buildings in Red Bank that were also built around that same time period that should be considered in the survey.
Okay.
Right. Let's move on then, if there's nothing else, to the 9 Wharf Avenue update.
I will just give a brief introduction. So this is 9 Wharf. They came before this commission, I believe it was last year. Where am I? Yes, it was last year because it's just March. It's just April. So they came before us last year. The commission made a few recommendations based on masking the height of the new penthouse story, and because they were going from a 3-story building to a 4-story building. This is the former check-in gallery, I believe, across from Red Rock. They submitted an application. In addition to submitting an application to the commission, they also had to go before the zoning board for variance relief. And as a part of that, when an application goes before either the planning board or the zoning board, the historic commission becomes an their recommendations are advisory. So the applicant does not have to take the recommendation, but is strongly recommended that they do. And so this is the application was approved by the zoning board, and now they are in the resolution compliance phase of the permitting process, the zoning permitting process. And now I've asked the applicant to just come back before the commission to kind of state how they understood what the commission recommended and how they incorporated that into the design. There is no formal action that is just needed. They are just being good neighbors and returning to the commission to kind of tell us what they've done. If you could just grab the mic that's by Christina, just to speak into it. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Dan Zanetto. I'm with Mode Architects, and
You can move with it. You don't have to, yeah, it's, there you go.
excuse me, like Shauna said, we had come before the Historic Preservation Commission last year. I'm not exactly sure if the end of last year. I'll show you the design that we had originally presented at that time. And we did receive a lot of comments and concerns about the design that we presented. So this was.
Oh.
So it was a much more modern addition that we were proposing on the fourth floor. The idea was to kind of juxtapose the existing historical building and have a clear delineation between the existing and the new addition. It was a blue fiber cement panel with aluminum reveals, so it was a very modern design, and we could tell that that wasn't really pleasing the board in any way. So we were asked to take a look at it, to revise it, to make it more compatible with the existing building. And also to minimize the top floor in a way that it wasn't overpowering the elevation of the street. So we were asked to kind of step that top floor back, look at the materials, to use materials that were compatible with the existing. And again, try to minimize the top floor. So we took a look at the whole elevation of that building in a way that we could provide that addition that was more harmonious with the existing facade. So our proposal that we presented to the zoning board was to hide that upper floor in a mansard type roof. And that would achieve both tying it into the existing building, still having a clear delineation between the existing and the addition, but making something that's more compatible as a whole. And also would step the top of the building back, the 3 feet that was requested. The materials that we were proposing it's a asphalt shingle on the mansard. The trim would all be fiber cement trim, but to look in a way that is, just a nominal lumber. The board and batted on the side elevations, but really I think the bulk of the concern was on the front elevation. So everything on the existing is being maintained. New paint and in historical colors, and I'll show you which colors those are. Replacement windows, historic, I think they're historic Pella Reserve windows, in a historic fashion. And then we weren't proposing to do any changes to the existing storefront. The only thing that we'd be doing is replacing the glass where it was broken, painting and repairing any of the rotted wood. We're proposing to also remove the awning that is there. So just to open that wall up. This here is a 3D perspective of the proposed addition and the renovation of the existing building.
So you'll keep the original front door?
The original front door stays. We will have to replace the glass, the transom, because right now there's an air conditioner that goes through it, so we're taking that out, we're cleaning it all up and making it nice. We're replacing this door, but with a similar door. And then the glazing will all stay, the mullions will all stay. And then these upper windows will be replaced, they're in bad shape. And then this is the new addition. All the cornice work will be maintained, repaired, repainted. The colors that we've chosen are all from the Benjamin Moore Historical Collection, so it's a black, actually gray is the trim, and Danville tan is the body color.
The top floor, I know the front elevation is sloped back, it's got the mansard style. Gables. The sides, it looks like they're set back a bit, but they're vertical. Is that correct?
Their only setback is the width of the masonry wall below. So we were stepped
Like a foot?
the inside face of the wall. So there will be like a little couple inch setback on
A few inches, okay, but otherwise vertical.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, this looks like it could have been originally built that way, unlike the original design, which looks like a box was dropped on top of it. So this is a huge improvement from my perspective.
That's much better.
Yeah, from my perspective too, it's a lot better than your first shot at it. You know, I'm on the zoning board as well, so last time I saw you was at the zoning board. But I did have concerns about the windows. The colors look good. It's historic black, I guess, the frames in the windows, which historically you saw in Tudor houses, or you saw in industrial warehouses or more commercial spaces. So it's not really historical in terms of black frame windows. That's more of a contemporary look, in my opinion.
I agree.
So to me, I had made that comment at the zoning board, I think you recall. Didn't seem to carry much weight with the zoning board, but that's where we had decided, this was the case that I was telling you about, where we need to set down what we specifically want before it goes to zoning. It looks 100 times better than what you had submitted, so I'm happy about that. I'm happy about the historic colors, but it'll just be me who, when I look at it, sees a contemporary window on the facade.
I can't agree with you more. The black windows, you know, I see it up and down Broad Street now,
Yeah,
you know, and I agree with you. And then there'll be a time 10, 15 years from now where that won't be in fashion and it'll
Yeah.
date the building that
yeah.
is dated to, you know, like an 80s modern building.
You know, and we see a lot of the black around town when you have these new construction, and the homes are usually white. And
Oh, yeah.
on Wallace,
Anything that's a tear
anything
down
that's
on my
white-
street is now white.
it's white with black windows. And now we've got the kind of siding that goes, that kind of farmhouse siding up top, adjacent to on the Mansford roof, on the side, it's kind of like that modern siding. So
Yeah.
to me, if this was white, we would all be like, oh my God. Because it would really kind of be like this is bastardization of a historic building. in my opinion.
Originally, it was
But
it
it
white?
does look better. I don't want you to think it does. Last
Do we
point.
know, do we have a picture of this building when it was originally built?
I've got it up on the computer.
Here, you wanna pass it?
That's a modern.
There's a side, I have
Yeah.
one like.
So it's white.
You know, I'd have to dig for it.
The only other thing I would have you consider is when you do replace, if you are gonna replace the windows on the lower level to make them more historic, I mean, the transom is important historically feature. It is a historic feature, transoms.
Oh, yes, yes.
If you're gonna tear down the transom, just please, I would ask that you keep that in mind. To replace that with some type of transom over the door now, right? So, I mean, they kind of keep that
Yes.
historical look
Yes.
instead of a modern
Transom
look.
over the main end, yeah, that we are replacing that because it's not, it has a hole cut in it for an air conditioner, so
Yeah,
it's got like a plexiglass window and an air conditioner.
Yeah.
So we're taking that out, we're gonna put a new window in there. And then otherwise, we're not gonna touch the framing of the storefront.
yeah. I mean, other than that, I appreciate the effort. For me, it was just the windows that I took issue with.
Yeah, but you really.
You can't.
Yeah, but it's, the original
You can't-
work at the top is, that's like, yeah, he's got a picture and that is original below your,
Yeah.
that's been there since the get-go. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not gonna change that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, how do we let them know that we're smiling?
Nothing. This was just this was really just an update. Just an,
Okay.
you guys can see what they did and that they did.
Oh, all right, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Nicely done.
Okay, you can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although I think it is a good learning for us, experience wise for the next application that goes to zoning to.
Well, there's another example where we need very objective, specific standards.
Yeah.
Well, correct.
We had this conversation briefly about the red brick. And it's like that warehouse thing. It's like, yeah, it's, for the factories, just like the black, windows. It's more of a factory thing. That's not necessarily the distinct architecture that we want replicated all over town.
Okay, thank you. Now.
So-
Monmouth Boat Club.
Yes. So Monmouth Boat Club is requesting again another letter of support for their New Jersey Historic Trust application. Last year, again, they came before us. I think it was around the same time these guys presented too. they are submitting to the Historic Trust for funding, the Historic Trust grant for funding to raise their building due to, not stormwater, but flooding issues, and to kind of preserve the building. So they're asking for funding for that. And, a part of their a part of their grant submission is for the commission to, provide them with a letter of support. We've done it in the last 2 years. But unfortunately, last year they didn't get the grant, and the year before, I believe. So, they're trying again, and from what I'm hearing, this is a good chance that they'll actually get the grant this year. But no matter what, I feel like the commission will provide you with a letter of support anyway, every time you need to submit. But, so that's why they're here. They're requesting a letter of support from the commission. What I'll do is just dust off the letter from last year. And what we did was that we voted on the application. Not the application, but we voted on the letter of support. So I'll need a motion and a second, and then I'll do a roll call. And that is what, there's no signature required, but it will just be of all the board members who voted.
And I have a copy of what we sent, if anybody would like to see what we did last year.
Previously, yeah.
So it didn't require a signature, but it did require, that we showed at the end, the actual vote, who voted yes and who voted no. And I would think that you don't have to recuse yourself from voting.
Oh,
I mean, that would be my impression, Shauna, because it's the vote, it's not a signature, or do you want to put an asterisk by his name?
No, I would just put abstain. I'd have him under abstain, and just I can put a member of the board
Yeah.
vote club underneath it, like a little.
that's fine.
Okay, so I would make the motion to then draft a new letter similar to the one that we did last year.
Okay, and we'll have a vote.
Marjorie first, second Liam. Okay. Lois Almarini, abstain.
Abstain.
Okay. Marjorie Cavalier,
Yes.
Liam Collins.
Aye.
Collins, sorry. Paul Cagno
Yes.
and Karen Schmelzkoff.
Yeah.
Getting it. Anthony Sotero.
Yes.
Okay. Yep, all good.
Thank you.
I will email you a copy of the letter tomorrow morning.
All right, we really appreciate all your help with this.
Yeah, last year somebody had to drive down to Trenton the next morning or something, so you have a little bit more time this year.
We do, so it's actually due for submission tomorrow, next week, it's like Thursday next week.
Okay.
But again, we do have to actually drop off a physical submission on a little
Thumb drive.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm also submitting it online, but
This is the year, yeah.
thank you. Hopefully we'll get it this year.
Okay, and can I ask that when I'm sure you're gonna have fundraisers to make up your part of it, because the grant won't cover the lifting of the building and the redoing of.
Yep, no, that's a great question. So we do plan to do that. It's, I don't know if you want me to use the mic or.
Yeah.
If you, yeah, sure.
Of course.
Who knows, it may even make the paper.
If you
get
can
those
say your name, there's nothing that you need to do. Just hold it up. Just say your name so I can have it on the record.
Brian Bugby, from the Vice Condover of Monmouth Boat Club. So we are currently applying for a matching grant from the State Historic Trust for $750,000. Our current proposal is that the project in total will cost around 2.25, give or take a little bit. So the remaining will be given up by the club's capital reserve, fundraising within the club, and then fundraising in general. So, yeah, similar to what you're asking, we will be having over the next year or so, various fundraisers, with individuals and even potentially corporate support, where possible. So
if I'd like the invitation to
absolutely.
whatever you're doing.
Yeah, no, certainly.
Because I think it's a beautiful building. After we talked about it here, I actually went over one Sunday to, lift the boards and look what's underneath there and all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, and so that's the other interesting thing too, is that So this May 4th and 5th, we'll be participating in the Weekend in Old Monmouth again. So if you want to come then, you're all invited, or anytime, just let us know. And we'd be happy to give you guys a tour of the building and answer, any detailed questions about the building. But essentially, the building is two pieces, one half built in, I think it was completed around 1895, the other completed about 1930. And basically the pilings that it sits on are the original ones from when both sections were built. So over the last, 100+ years, those have deteriorated substantially, and that's really what we're aiming to do is move the building, take out the old pilings, put in new ones, that'll last at least another 100 years more. And then put the building back on at the current location and Bronx height.
Now, you would be raising the building when you do that, or no?
Yes, lifting it over to
That's a
the,
good question. So we are aiming to raise it about 21 inches. And that was actually.
21
Yeah, it's a weird number, right?
inches.
So, inches,
That's it?
that's it. So, and the reason for that, we're kind of walking this fine balancing act between the New Jersey DEP and the New
Yeah.
Jersey Historical Commission. Where the New Jersey Historical Commission will not approve the matching grant if we go above that height. Because it's their belief that it would substantially change the appearance of the building. Even though the DEP has now come out with it was like October.
A new
or so.
standard, yeah.
Yes, where they increased the height from the FEMA height to, I think, an additional almost 5 feet. Because they believe that over the next 20 years, the sea level will rise about another 2 feet. So.
Yeah.
21 inches.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
the same issue that Locust Landing is running into. So they wanted to get the borough support before the DEP requires them to raise them at the new standard. So right now, there's the 21 inches that Locust Landing wants to stick at before the DEP kicks in the new standard that makes them go higher, which is more costly. So it's the same boat. Everyone is kind of in, that's in a floodplain.
Well, and that's the other interesting thing with regard to the historic perspective of the building is that the DEP previously would not look at if it was, taking into consideration the historical value of the building. So instead, they were just looking purely at, this is our FEMA height, you have to go to that. Versus now they're looking at I think it's the National Park Service, their view on historic buildings and what type of height you'd have to raise it in this type of environment within a floodplain. So we're hoping that they will permit us to go just 21 inches. And that essentially was the holdup last year for not getting the grant. So the DEP was not in agreement at the time. So we think we're in a pretty good position with the DEP that within the next few months, they'll grant us the approval, and then hopefully as well, the Historic Trust will provide us the matching grant. Too.
It's a jewel.
Yeah, no, it's a great facility. And that's the incredible thing too, is with all of our photos that we have over the last almost 150 years of that area, that's more or less stayed the same, while the whole surrounding area has changed over time. So it's, almost like a little time capsule.
Yeah,
Right back.
cool.
thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck. Have a good evening.
Yeah.
Oh, who do I send it to? The email. Do I send it to the same person I sent it to last year?
What you do?
Want to make sure. That letter right now. Sorry, our
No, it's okay.
application for the design guidelines is under boat club. So when I search boat club.
Oh, both club life.
Yeah. Andrews,
Yep, Andrew's angle.
yeah,
Yep, yeah, you can send it to his email.
okay. All right, so I'll just send that now.
All right, thank you so much.
Right, thank you.
Have a great evening.
So we're now on new business.
Yes, now, see my legacy.
Oh, okay. So, during a recent, department head meeting, we had, the, community engagement coordinator, told us about a new, program that the borough is signing up for that helps with fundraising, and a part of that, this company, See My Legacy, they have a service of providing QR code plaques for historic sites or any type of like in memoriam of this person. And so it's when this was brought up, it hit me with the historic sites that we have throughout the borough. Next year, potentially, I can put it in a budget to do, because they have like a certain package amount, so they have like for 20 plaques. It's a certain amount of money, or for 50 or for 100 or whatever. So that was like in consideration. And so the QR code would lead to like a website that will have like the history about the building, or something significant. Also, speaking of the ghost signs, we can link that to a picture of what the ghost sign was that was there on the site. So we could do a lot with that. So I just wanted to bring that to the commission's attention, that the borough is signing up for this See My Legacy service. And it, a part of their service that we'll just have to add on to, is to do these historic plaques that are just, I mean, the way how it looks is it could just be like, you know, a small little QR code, or just like a little nameplate like this, but it will include like the QR code, or it could be something as big as like this paper with the QR code, and it'll say like scan here for, but they have different designs. But once we get closer to that, but I just wanted to make you guys aware that there is an option, since we have been talking about that for a while, to have like plaques throughout towns.
Can you ask Michelle, if,
Michelle?
yeah, if,
Oh, Michelle.
yeah,
Sorry, someone like.
yeah. No, if we have a site that is a private residence, I mean.
I think we have to ask.
We have to ask the
Yeah.
owner if it's okay to put.
Yeah, we would
That
have to
clock,
ask
that-
them. So what, I mean, potential petition we can do is probably to say that, you know, it's free to the property owner. To put it on their property. We could always say that, that they don't have to pay,
Yeah,
for it,
it's
they
just
just
that-
have to allow it there.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, it has to be, well, I think we've got a ways to go. But you don't want somebody going up to your front door and,
To scan a code.
and to scan a code, so, we almost have. to-
But it could be on a fence.
Yeah, it could be a fence,
Have
if
to
a fence
put something
exists,
close
if
to it, yeah.
if a fence exists, or like the White House.
Yeah, something
on,
where it's not,
you know.
like, you don't have to go on their property, but again, that's us talking to the property owner, so I think it's just
Yeah,
picking.
do
and
they even
choosing.
want that?
Right.
Yeah, picking and
Exactly.
choosing the properties that we're interested in. I would think like a lot of the downtown, like, I would
Yeah,
say
I
all
could-
of downtown.
Yeah, eventually.
Yeah, to even put it on the clock.
Right, well, it should be
Yeah,
on
the
the clock.
seals,
It
yeah.
should be on.
Yeah, just to talk about the history of Broad Street.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think that would be good.
And I don't think that clock is on an element either.
is on a what?
It's on our historic element,
Oh, no, you're right, I don't think it is.
you know, and I happened to be on Broad Street when it was hit.
Yeah,
And I said, please don't, you're not gonna take it away forever. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, we were just across the street when some truck banged into it, so, and I said, you're not taking it away for good. No, so, I mean, we really have to protect it because it's in so many of those photos
Yeah,
of Broad Street.
yeah, so
Um,
identifying.
Yeah,
whatever
so
thing.
as we get closer to that, clearly, I think one of the things we talked about in the pre-agenda meeting was the package that maybe started with 20
Yeah.
or something, you know, the ballpark was a couple of $1,000 maybe.
Yeah, it is. And then also I can always search for grants too, to cover this. I'm pretty sure there's like the grants.
I was gonna say for the ones that are on like in a public area, if people were so like inclined, would you be willing to let people sponsor them? And then on the website, it also said like
Yeah.
unsponsored
Idea.
by
It's
X.
also like, that's also a part of.
The intended, yeah.
My legacy, because that's like for fundraising for, you know, borough initiatives that they want donations for. But we can also do, an initiative for these plaques, and maybe we'll get like donations from people, residents or interested parties throughout the borough, do our own little fundraiser for it. And that way it could flow right into that.
I mean, it doesn't sound like the cost is that great, but it's almost like a nice community activity and sort of
Yeah.
nation building around those sites.
And I can talk to Adriana about that, like creating that it would just be for the historic commission. We'll do our own little campaign for the historic plaque. So maybe we'll just do the match money, like the half and half.
I got to tour the Burlington County Prison Museum the other day. We're doing that conference on June 4th and 5th, if anyone's going to that. But it's all about this interaction and this all immersiveness, and there's QR codes everywhere. And you learn the history about the inmates, and there's interactive sounds, and there's all this stuff. And so they were talking again, what Sean is talking about. There's a lot of grants that are out there in this immersive experience for people. So I think it's a great idea.
Just a random technical point, Shauna, do they host the website?
I have to, I'll talk
My
to
question.
some more about it. If it has to pull from maybe our website. Because I know like EC, the Environmental Commission, they have their own website. So maybe we need to get our own website.
Yeah, I think they have like a Google, it's like .site or something.
Okay, yeah, so maybe we can do that, and then it could pull from that. So like, for example, for the story dedication pack, I'm on their website now. For the 25 pack, it's $1,975. For a 50 pack, it's $3,700. So if we can fundraise for it, do our own campaign on it, and then, you know, do it that way, that could help.
The River Center may even
Yeah,
toss
could be
in
a
some money
project with River
since they're not paying for the bricks now.
Well, River Center's money is the borough's money.
Well, no,
It's half and half, but.
no, but I mean, they do have money.
Yeah.
You know, so that's also another way of handling it, I think. So, okay. I have a piece of new business that's not on the agenda. So people see me walking around town all the time because, I mean, not only is exercise, but I feel like I am keeping tabs on the town in a way. And this house on Wallace Street that has its porch propped up for over a year and a half now. And the rest of the house looks very almost done, you know, and they just redid the brickwork, 26 Wallace I'm talking about. And they still have the porch propped up. Is it another one of those houses that's not on the element list? But apparently they did come before the commission. This is what I understand. I have no way of,
The former commission saved from the developer who was gonna tear it down.
That's the one.
Green one?
Tear down and.
yeah, it was gonna be tear down. So, but, so just talking to someone, I don't have to mention who, told me that the person actually had the replacements for the porch. And they came to the commission and they were told that they couldn't use those supports, the materials that they had purchased. And that's why it's still propped up, and they were pretty costly, the columns that they wanted to replace it to look like they did in the past because of the nature of the materials. I don't know. So I guess my new business is, can we find out when they came to the commission and who came to the commission and
I can
I mean-
tell you right now.
and then write to that property owner and say, come back to us. Come back to us and talk to us about what you want to do there,
You said
because
26 Wallace?
26 Wallace. It's the greenhouse, you know, and they just redid the brickwork in the front on the steps. But it's, you know, it's just looked almost done for forever.
They called me. Remember that? He called.
I don't
He
remember
called me
them.
Today, actually, I was.
Get out of here.
His,
Yeah,
I
because
was in the office, but I can,
I passed on the word to the person that I was talking to say, you know, if you see the person,
Yeah.
tell them
It works.
to come back.
He
You're doing good work.
came here in 2022 and 2024, I believe.
Does it say what the building materials were that?
2024, so May 2024, he came here. It says removing falling brick steps, rebuilding with new green gray brick, replace something walls with brick, bluestone. Oh, this was for the rebuild chimney, repair wood columns
That's it.
and
columns.
handrail, replace asphalt roof with new roof. He plans to replace the chimney, repair columns and handrail. So he had it as repair.
I don't know.
My understanding.
But
He was
it
gonna-
just-
he
it just
presented
seems-
that he was gonna repair it.
I don't know.
Cause they might have wanted a replacement and the replace to get an
Yeah,
exact
you
replacement.
need to,
Sorry. I mean, it's total assumption, so.
yeah, no, that's
But
why,
my assumption would be that they wanted a replacement and the replacement's too much, so he was trying to just repair. But
I'm
that's an
confused.
assumption.
Is this? I thought you said this isn't, I know the house.
oh,
I thought you said it's not designated.
It's
No.
it's in the Washington Street district.
So it's
Because Wallace
because it's in the
isn't, yeah.
district.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's in
but it's not on our element.
No, but
Okay.
it's
Covered by the district.
it's covered by the
district.
Washington Street
Oh,
district.
now I understand. Okay.
Mhm.
Because there's a house right next to it
That's
that's had a
being-
lot of work done.
Yeah, yeah.
And we never saw the applicant for that.
And we never saw an application. And my only criticism of the work that was done is when you take these two greenhouses and look at them separately, the colors are acceptable. These two greens should not be next to each other. It's just a personal.
Because it skips, so like, for some reason, there's a house that's in the district, it skips that house and then another house is there. It's really weird how.
Oh,
it
that's
designates.
why
That's
it's not
it happened,
designated?
Yeah.
Right, it's not in the
Yeah.
Yeah,
district.
so it skipped the house, so it's like two houses that are, and then it skipped it.
I don't know, but,
I don't know how
So-
that designates.
so that's why it didn't come before us. Because the way they did this element list, it was not included. So whether somebody got some money under the tape, I don't know why, you know,
But Mike needs to be on.
Somebody called you, so hopefully.
Call me, I don't know why he called, let me see, let me check my message.
I'm hoping I had it.
If there's anything we
I
could
hope
do
so.
to.
So
assist with-
while I speak to him, what would you like me to say to him?
Come back, little Shiva.
Yeah, let's just try to find out what the story is.
He
Like,
says, I have a question for you regarding fencing an actual brick wall that I'd like to build. So. he wants to-
He's already building it.
Okay, so when I speak to him tomorrow, 26.
Now,
what's the deal with the column?
If there is an issue with the column that we could resolve, kind of carve it out and resolve it on a minor work.
Yeah, 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 that's a good
Basis.
idea. A good idea.
Yeah, it's good idea.
So would you like me to ask him to hop on a minor works committee call?
Well, why don't you?
That's good, that's
Yeah.
good.
Instead of
Yeah.
sharing before.
Right,
the-
right,
Absolutely. Yeah,
That's
no,
the
I'm just
point.
thinking that way he doesn't have to wait a month.
Yeah.
I just be heard real quick. I
Yeah,
should
yeah.
probably have him put an application in to see what he wants to do before we can determine if.
So what he can, I mean, I can ask him if he wants to revise his existing approval. So I can just take from that old application from when he submitted in 2024.
Yeah.
And ask him if he wants to revise it or submit a new one, not have the guy pay another, I mean, it's $50, but have him pay another one. And as Marjorie's saying, is that he's struggling with whatever. So if he wants to amend it, amend his application to whatever, but we could we can grant him, ask him to come to the minor works committee.
Yeah.
If that's okay.
Yep.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, and I have one other new business. So, Lou and I and Liam also have been going to these, planning board meetings about the transit village. And so one of the meetings, somebody in the audience, after I had identified myself as a member of the HPC, because I'm concerned about the historic triangle at the train station. Originally, I don't know if people read the proposal. In it, it says, maintained in its current place or could be moved. So I'm totally against that. But I had identified myself as a member, so that's why this member of the public approached me, who lives in the historic district and said, I'd be interested in attending some kind of just Q&A about, the design guidelines or what we do, the process or whatever. So I wondered if we could put on the agenda kind of to find a time, maybe at the library or at the senior center, to just do that, to just sometime this year have a Q&A with anybody from the public, whether they live in the historic district or not, just to come and have an opportunity to speak with some of us.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say to that is can they not come here?
I just, I was thinking that if we did it when Stephen was on board, it could be also a time period for feedback and questions from the general public about the design guidelines. I just thought that, if we got a little bit, it could be at one of these meetings, but it seems like a different kind of more informal thing than a meeting with an agenda, which we never know what will happen, what we need to put on, so it could be, I don't know. I don't want to call it a party. It's not a party, but I just wondered if we could have like a different kind of vibe with it. So.
Yeah. Well, there were, within Stephen's engagement, there were at least a couple of public sessions already. I wouldn't want to like confuse what those are, because I think that's momentum building and feedback just for his project. But maybe if you wanted to do a preface to that, like, here is what we are and what you'll see coming.
Yeah.
That could be smart.
Yeah. I concur. I mean, not necessarily a kickoff to what he's going to be doing in town, but, it certainly could be mentioned because a lot of people don't read the paper, don't follow a feed, don't know necessarily what we're doing. So if it would be promoted in a different kind of way, it could be mentioned at that, as well as answering any questions about the commission and such.
How does that work as far as being a public meeting? Would there have to be minutes or anything, or would it be?
I
think there just can't be a quorum of.
There cannot be a quorum.
Okay,
It would have to be a representative, a couple representatives.
okay.
Yeah, so if you want to do something at the library, I know when I did my talk at the library about the planning and zoning process, I don't know if they still do, Marjorie, you could probably tell me if they still do like the afternoon like sessions where people come in and give like a talk. So maybe you want to approach what's her name, Mary Ellen Mess, about doing one of those things.
Well,
They advertised it and everything.
Acting director is Candace. I think it's the way you pronounce her name. But they do have that community room. I mean, he's done a presentation there about the Mount family. We definitely could do something there, maybe in September, by that time. Stuff will already start happening with the design guidelines. We don't have to worry as much about somebody being on vacation or anything. So I could try and get a date from the library. The library board meets next Thursday. I could definitely put it out there.
What about bringing or kind of answering, doing some Q&A, but maybe bringing some of like the early documentation you have for prioritizing those properties like that Steven's gonna look at. Like if you're getting cool narratives about properties, maybe people would be interested in that part of it too.
Would you like me to CC you on the letter?
Yes. So, I will, take it upon myself to see if we can get a time like the end of September. By that time, people involved in school openings and stuff should have settled down a little bit and, you know, we should be into the process a little bit, hopefully by then. And see if we can get a date so we can start talking about it.
I will say first, as I recall, September gets really loaded with events in town. That would be my only concern. I see what you mean, but like everyone does that.
Yeah.
People just are settling in. So it's like every week has like 3 events.
Okay,
So just to, like, see what's out there.
well, yeah,
Oh, no, I'm sorry, you finished? I had a matter
Yeah.
to discuss.
yeah, sure.
This would be something for new business. I just wanted to put it on everyone's radar to see if maybe there's something we can prepare for as a group, as a board. As you know, I am on a zoning board, so there has been an application that has been on the agenda and then removed from the agenda, and now talks of it coming back on the agenda, which is a demolition of some homes on Riverside Avenue across from the atrium. Are you all familiar with the
Yeah,
project?
yeah.
So with the demolition of some of those homes, which I don't know if they're on the list, some of them are certainly contributing. I'm staring at them right now in front of me. They have Mashford
They're
roofs.
about the only
They-
two left, right?
There's like 4 or 5 homes there that are under threat of being demolition, that are gonna come before the zoning board. They're gonna skip us. Doesn't mean we can't have a voice, commission to object, if you do object to it.
No, I,
Probably would.
Yeah.
But I would like to be proactive on it. So, Shauna, or Christina, if you hear that it's going to be on the zoning agenda in advance, maybe we can tell the historic and maybe we can prepare a letter in support of not tearing down these buildings to put up yet another high-rise building with 40 or 50 condos or 40 or 50 apartments. Because we know the importance of those houses, to me anyway. As you come over the bridge in Middletown, you make the left, you got the Ravino. Now you're gonna have 300 apartments on where the old
Yeah.
veterans housing is gonna be.
DNA.
And then you're gonna pass
And
another.
you kind of
40,
come
50.
into Red Bank and all of a sudden the first really piece of character, to me anyway, are these old historic homes with the porches and the Mansfield roofs
Yeah,
and all these things. Now we're getting into like real Red Bank, right? Then you get into Broad Street and Wallace and the rest of the district. To me, it's an invitation to Red Bank that's
Yeah,
under
yeah.
threat.
I agree.
So I'd like to get it on our radar and to see if it's something that we could stay on top of and propose a letter supporting or not supporting the tear down structures, which is quite frankly a big part of our ordinance, right? Is the demolition.
Yeah.
So just wanted to address that and maybe we can keep it on the front burner.
Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because it is entryway into Red Bank. And it does represent the old kind of Victorian river town, which if it is replaced by another, indescript brick building, what are we turning into?
Exactly.
And I had mentioned this maybe to Christina about the architect who made the bluffs over on Front Street near the library. Those were original big old river houses there, and he adapted those and he renovated those. So those houses along the street there are the original, 19th century homes. The ones he built behind there were designed to kind of
Complement.
replicate the architecture of the houses on the front. But those original houses were the original houses. So I mentioned to Christina, I said, oh, maybe we can meet with the developer of these 5 houses. Again, this is the way that they've been doing it in Red Bank. They buy all these adjacent buildings, sit on them for decades or years and let them dilapidate and then say, oh, they're beyond repair. We've got to tear them down. And by the time, they do that, the community's tired of looking at these old broken down houses and people just push it through. But it doesn't have to be that way. I mean, the architect and the developer is still around who did the bluffs. So I don't know why they don't engage, the council should engage that owner of the bluff and introduce them to the owner of this development project and say, why not here?
Yeah. Yeah, the only thing I would say to that, with my experience has been on these boards, is that, you give an out to demolish and it will be voted to demolish. For me, I hear incessantly about these new buildings when they're being passed. That was going to satisfy affordable housing. That was going to do this, that was going to do that, how they're dilapidated, we got to tear them down. To me, this is what I would consider, it may not be affordable of the definition of what affordable is. Somebody making $30,000 with 5 children or something. This is affordable rentals compared to what's going there. 100%. They're putting 2-bedroom, $3,500 apartments as compared to these houses, which some of them have been converted to 3 families or 4 families.
Are they all residents or?
But there were residents in there.
commercial?
There are residents in there, they're 1450 1-bedroom apartments, there's 2-bedroom apartments, there's 1650
Yeah.
2-bedroom apartments. and
Yeah, that is a.
There are 950 attic apartment. That's what's currently here. So
Mhm.
all I'm saying is I appreciate everything you're saying as a last resort, but to suggest that it's okay to knock them down because we have a developer who did it once before and it looks pretty cool. I would rather not go there only because my experience tells me that they will latch on to that and say, well, let's knock them down because we've got this guy who's going to build up these newer stuff. That's just me personally. My preference, not to tear them down.
Knock them down, I'm suggesting they reuse them. Just
Oh, like incorporate them.
incorporate them, keep those 5 houses and renovate them.
Yeah.
And then maybe add additional houses with similar kind of architecture behind them like they did at the Bluffs.
Mhm.
Trying to
Yeah.
reach 40 apartments, you could probably make 25 apartments or, 30 apartments if you did it, thoughtfully.
Mhm.
So yeah, no, I'm not suggesting they tear, I'm saying the opposite, I'm saying preserve,
Preserve, yeah.
reuse those houses the way they are.
Yeah.
So have there been any hearings on this yet?
It's been removed from at least twice, I think, or at least once. I know it was on and then taken off. I think it's been twice.
So we have to just tread lightly, with this is only because it's not in our jurisdiction. And I understand the passion behind it. My only recommendation is that you guys just look out for the agendas. And voice your opinion there, but because it's not in the jurisdiction of.
So this would go to
commission.
zoning before it goes to planning.
Let me see.
It would.
Is it Malali? Is it 3749 Riverside? I feel like it is.
I mean, there's not too many.
I think it's Malali.
I think as you go into Red Bank and you pass Biravino, and then there's.
Days.
It's south of. Holland.
Yeah,
It's
it's-
south.
Beyond that,
Just beyond that, there's a row of,
Yeah, it's right here.
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, yeah, so
Okay.
right now, as of now, I can tell you. They need to figure out themselves. We've been, it's pretty frustrating because I've been trying to schedule them for the longest, because the time. Starts clicking, triggering if we don't, get them on a schedule. Then it's sometimes triggers an automatic approval. If they
Oh,
aren't
yeah, there's
scheduled like
games that can
per.
be played because
Yeah.
sometimes you have a year to block a demolition.
Well,
And if the year
no,
goes,
as in like, so for us, in order, the zoning board has 120 days to act when an application is deemed complete.
Mhm.
And so we have to constantly approach the attorney to say, do you extend, as Kevin always says, extend the time in which the board has to act. And so if they consent to extending the time in which the board has to act, then that pushes back the clock for us. But it always, the zoning board has 120 days in order to act. So we have to keep chasing them down to ask, when are you guys gonna be?
So if they delay as a tactic, and they're the ones that are
Well, no, we
delaying
won't grant
adherence.
them I mean, it's.
It sounds like, I don't know. it's like something
MLUL
on TV or
says to
something, right?
protect like the applicant or not protect the applicant, but no one ever wants to get an automatic approval. It's usually like a frowned upon in the land use world. No one actually goes after it like that.
Could you explain to me the reasons for the delay?
So I think it's, one of the reasons I know was because their professionals, they couldn't get all their professionals to agree on a time, on a date to appear before the board. The other was that the letter, the review memo from the engineer had a lot of requests that they had to go back to the drawing board to address, which then delayed them even further because it was just too complicated what our board engineer had said that they needed to do to clean up and tighten up. So they wanted to go back and revise their plans based on that. And now I think it's just them trying to figure out a timing when all their professionals is available. But we have sent them letters asking them to consent to the time, and they have been consenting to the time. So I'm just waiting to hear back on when we can get them on the agenda.
So you don't think they're gaming to get an automatic approval? You think
No.
that's truly just
Yeah, because
this back and forth that's going on?
Yeah, knowing who some of the professionals, I think that's on this, they're used statewide and everyone meets on the same dates. Unfortunately, there's but so few people in the land use profession that are really good at testifying, and that certain people want to use. And so they're in high demand, so it's hard to get on everyone's schedule coordinated.
Yeah, and my last question is, so, I was gonna say, what, is there a particular reason why any of these homes? Is there a particular reason why any of these homes we haven't addressed as being part of the element, that we're going around looking at?
It's, all I can say is, as a starting point, the element that we were provided, if we asked for it, when we were appointed, is what I started working from to walk around town with. Why it did not extend, because basically anything west of Broad Street, there hasn't been as much focus on. And that was included in the ordinance, that we include more properties west of Broad Street, or they just said on the west side of town.
Okay.
So
I mean, there's nothing precluding us from adding any.
there is nothing, I mean, the way I read the ordinance.
No, I mean, as what you could do now is literally start the process
Yeah.
to start designating them.
Yeah, what I was gonna say, because it will carry in my opinion, it'll carry more weight, our objection, if these homes are designated or imminently going to be designated. So
You might want to start working on them now to be designated and.
Yeah, I would just say, like, I walk by that all the time. I live on Riverside. And actually, your point, Paul, hits very home to me, like close to home, because I had it being basically like workforce housing currently, because I had shop girlfriends who lived in one of those houses. Like, I 100% agree. And so that I get. I will say though, walking by there, I think, and knowing what the threshold is for historic designation, I think you would be very hard pressed to shoehorn those in. They're probably, of a certain age, but I don't think any of them are, I don't think they hit like the architectural significance. I mean, in truth, they're also not in great shape, but like they're already vinyl sided, like there's not like, general shape. I understand, but I think it would be an uphill battle to designate those, in all honesty, just because I see it so often.
yeah, I mean, there's one that's probably that's nondescript, but there are certainly two. One still has heater shake on it. Two of them have the roofs, the historical roofs. 4 out of the 5 have these historic porches, Victorian porches. I know there are homes that are currently in the district or that have protective status that are similar. That's all I'm saying. I think it's worth trying to save these homes personally. And I think it's worth the effort to try to do that.
There also may be something historic that's happened there. Given its location, it's worth checking that out.
Yeah, can
Yeah.
definitely. do a
Are you
deep
familiar
dive.
with these homes? You are certainly have a wealth of knowledge.
I will definitely dig into the addresses and see.
I mean, this one is.
Yeah,
So Barbara Pickle at,
The library.
she has
nice house.
has a residence list from 1890.
Mm.
And I'm sure that
I mean, this one,
they're on that list, and so it'll tell who the residents were in, you know.
Anthony, have you looked at?
I will. I haven't looked at these specific properties.
No, I mean Barbara Pickle's residence.
Oh, I don't recall if I did at one point or not. I don't have it on hand to pull up.
Yeah, they have maps over there of, that list the names of the property owners.
There's one that it's my favorite map, Red Bank, the 1898 map that has that, and it tells you kind of who's living where, and it's
Yeah, right,
handwritten on it.
right,
It's really cool.
Right, yeah. Okay, all right. That's all I had for new business.
Okay.
Sorry, is there
Comment.
any way to figure out how we can contact the person that owns those 5 houses right now? It's a developer who owns all 5 of them.
I'm not sure if he may have a letter of intent to buy subject to approvals. I'm not sure what the situation, I have no knowledge of the transaction itself. Don't know if he owns all of them or not. Historically, what I've seen is they get these letter of intent, you know, so you get under a letter of
Yeah, it's
intent.
contingent
with-
upon
Contingent on
approvals.
certain things, approvals and all these other things. And then if you don't get them within a certain time frame, the buyer or the seller can cancel the agreement. So I don't know if that's currently the state or not. I haven't dug into it like that, and it hasn't come before. It's only been on the agenda, then pulled off the agenda.
Pretty sure it's the same person that owns all 5 buildings.
Yeah, I think he does.
I don't remember the gentleman's name.
Yeah, you can unplug that. Sorry, I trapped you there. Okay.
What kind of proactive appropriate that we as the historic preservation.
Coppola. That's who owns it,
Coppola,
Frank Coppola.
Frank,
Coppola?
not Francis Ford.
He spent all his money on a, anyway.
But yeah, I mean, is there anything proactively we can do as a collective, like say, you know, Mr. Coppola, would you consider talking to Mr. So-and-so who
You can write them a letter. I mean, that's not the developer, that's the property owner, but I don't know if, because they submitted their development permit application in 2022. And I don't know if now Malelli now owns that. That's is proceeding with the project. So I don't know if Malelli's now the owner.
Or just has letter of intent, probably.
Yeah.
is there any way to find out who did the bluffs? Because I remember the gentleman who developed the bluffs on some, you know, Facebook feed. I saw him. He in fact said, why doesn't this person do the same thing I did on the bluffs? What
I saw that.
gave me the idea. But introduce them, you know, and maybe, you know, he can give them some guidance on how to save these houses and reuse them. And how would we do it? We'd have to, someone would have to,
Write a letter to them, maybe? Yeah, maybe.
To the build, but the builder has no association any longer with Bluffs, though, right? So I don't even know, how would we get that person? You're talking about
Like the
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 architect,
architect who did that?
I think the developer, the one who owned all those individual
Yeah.
houses and who reused them and developed them into what's now the Bluffs. This is a few years ago that happened, but I think he's probably still alive or, you know, around. But I don't know his name. That's,
I don't know.
For my time. Yeah.
so, but I'll volunteer to write the letter if we want to send it collectively. That's,
Can't hurt to just inquire.
Is that a development plan?
Oh, yeah, that's the plan.
I haven't seen it.
It's completely different in character from what's there.
Jason Pierce.
Station Place. What's that? Exactly what we need.
I mean, if they were starting with a parking lot, it's not bad, but to demolish Victorian
Oh,
homes.
there it is.
Yeah, that's it.
So what do we need to?
Would you like the contact information for the developer and you could write the letter to them?
Sure. I mean, do we need to vote on or anything to take that kind of action or?
I mean, my only concern would be if we're gonna draft a letter. Well, we haven't seen the plans, the submitted plans yet, right? Are those the submitted plans?
Mhm.
Well,
I don't know if they'll change it between now and whenever they decide to be heard, honestly.
I personally wouldn't want, well, I guess I would have to see the letter first, but I personally wouldn't want the letter to be construed as encouraging any type of material exterior change to the character of those homes. So I'm certainly open to reviewing the letter and putting my name on it, assuming I agree with the letter. My personal opinion was initially
Just
a
save
letter
the
saying,
houses.
save the houses, don't
Yeah,
demolish the
don't
houses.
do anything to them.
For various reasons of historical significance, and I have no problem drafting a letter like that too. So I guess I would have to see the letter that you proposed.
I think if you include like maybe based on Anthony's research, like why it's important and significant. Craft that letter that way and then like how we did for the boat club, kind of like make a motion on the letter and then say like, do a roll call and put like how many people the commission, this is what the commission agrees to, they can take it or leave it. Like I said, because it's not in our jurisdiction.
Right.
I think you'd need some narrative about those
Yeah.
places to.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully,
Solidify.
you know, it was like a mayor lived in one of the houses or
Mhm.
something, someone's.
Right, and then, if that doesn't, you know, encourage them to make changes, then I would say attend the zoning board hearing then and not read the letter, because you're not allowed to read the letter, but you could say, you can give points from the letter on testimony.
I will say, you know, when you talk about the narrative of the town or the development of the town, it's a shame that so many of the homes in that area are already demolished and that's all that's left. So people for, you know, the last 30, 40 years, they don't really have the essence, if they don't know the history of that was, you know, beautiful area and this, you know, Riverside, you know, kind of drive there and had these beautiful homes on the water, you know, before Oyster Point or Molly Pitcher were there, you know, those were all beautiful homes on the water. And that was a really pretty thoroughfare, you know, obviously up at Cooper's Bridge was kind of, you know, the dirty area, but getting to there, that was all really nice. So there, hopefully we get lucky with who lives specifically in those houses, but the idea of what that promenade, it was like a promenade entrance
Yeah.
into the town, which is what I feel from you, of
Yeah.
like what
Yeah.
you get from it, you know?
Exactly.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
You beat me to it. I was gonna ask.
Well done.
Oh.
Well done.